Did you know that over 27,000 people are homeless in Texas right now, and that number is rising every single day? Even more shocking, many of them once had steady jobs, homes, and family. In a state known for oil wealth, tech booms, and big business, how is it possible that so many are sleeping in cars, parks, and under bridges? You might think homelessness is caused by poor choices or addiction. But the truth is far more complex and far more terrifying. Imagine working full-time, doing everything right, and still being unable to afford rent. Picture an economy growing so fast, it's actually crushing the very people who helped build it. This isn't just a crisis, it's a warning sign. In this video, we're breaking down the 10 hidden reasons why the Texas economy is fueling a wave of homelessness, and why millions could be at risk. Trust me, you'll want to hear them all. Number 1. Skyrocketing housing prices are pushing working people to the streets. Texas used to be known for its affordable housing, but that reputation is quickly fading. In cities like Austin, Dallas, and Houston, home prices have skyrocketed by over 40% in just the last 5 years. In fact, Austin was recently ranked among the least affordable cities in the country. Yes, even more than some parts of California. The median home price in many areas now sits above $450,000, and rent prices have followed suit, rising faster than wages can keep up. Families who once felt secure are being priced out of their own neighborhoods, with nowhere affordable left to go. What makes this crisis even more devastating is that it's not just affecting the unemployed. Many Texans facing homelessness today actually have full-time jobs. Nurses, teachers, grocery clerks, people we rely on daily, are being forced to live in their cars, couch surf, or move into overcrowded shelters. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, a Texan earning minimum wage would need to work over 90 hours a week just to afford a basic one-bedroom apartment. It's not laziness causing homelessness, it's basic math that no longer adds up. And while new developments are popping up everywhere, most of them are luxury condos and high-rises aimed at wealthy buyers or out-of-state investors. Affordable housing isn't just disappearing, it's being replaced with something most Texans could never dream of affording. So when we ask why homelessness is rising, we need to start by looking at the most obvious and devastating reason. People simply can't afford to live where they work anymore. And if this trend continues, millions more could be just one rent hike away from losing it all. Number 2. The disappearance of affordable rentals is squeezing families out. For years, affordable rentals acted as a safety net for low and middle-income Texans. But that net is quickly unraveling. Across Texas, from El Paso to Dallas, we're seeing a disturbing trend. Affordable rental units are vanishing at an alarming rate. Why? Because developers and real estate investors are swooping in, buying up older, low-cost properties, and flipping them into luxury apartments or Airbnb-style rentals. This aggressive gentrification is shrinking the affordable housing pool, and those who depended on it are being pushed further and further out, sometimes into homelessness. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, Texas has lost tens of thousands of affordable rental units over the past decade, and the ones that remain are overwhelmed with demand. In some cities, the waitlists for low-income housing vouchers stretch for years, with many applications simply being closed due to high volume. For working-class families, especially single parents, this means there's no backup plan. When rent increases, even by a few $100s, they're faced with a gut-wrenching decision: cut food, skip medical care, or risk eviction. What's most painful is how invisible this crisis can be. These aren't just people you see on the streets. They're living in motels, storage units, or doubled up with relatives, barely hanging on. Some are teachers, some are veterans, many are kids, and with no real regulations to slow down rent hikes or protect tenants, more families are falling into housing instability every month. This isn't just a housing market trend, it's a quiet disaster. And unless major changes are made to preserve and expand affordable rentals, we're going to see more tents under highways and more children growing up without a place to call home. Number 3. Wage stagnation in a booming economy. Texas loves to brag about its booming economy, and on the surface, it's true. Major cities are expanding, billion-dollar companies are relocating to the state, and unemployment rates have dipped. But there's a darker truth hiding underneath all that growth. Wages for working-class Texans have barely moved in decades, while the cost of living has surged, especially for essentials like housing, groceries, and gas. Many workers are still earning what they were a decade ago. That growing gap between income and expenses is trapping people in poverty and slowly pushing them toward homelessness. Let's break it down. A cashier in Houston, a hotel cleaner in San Antonio, or a food delivery driver in Dallas may all be employed full-time, but that doesn't mean they can afford basic needs. In fact, data from the Economic Policy Institute shows that real wages for low-income Texans have been flat or even declined when adjusted for inflation. Meanwhile, the state's minimum wage remains stuck at $7.25 an hour, the same as it's been since 2009. That's not even close to a living wage in today's economy. So even as Texas celebrates job growth, it's leaving behind the very people who make the economy run. What's even more heartbreaking is that many of these individuals are working multiple jobs and still living paycheck to paycheck. One unexpected bill, a car repair, a hospital visit, or a rent increase, and everything falls apart. Without meaningful wage growth, even a job can't protect someone from falling into homelessness. It's a cruel irony. In one of the richest states in the country, people are working harder than ever just to survive. Until wages catch up with reality, we'll keep seeing families slipping through the cracks, despite being employed, responsible, and doing everything society told them to do. Number 4. Weak tenant protection laws leave renters vulnerable. In Texas, if you're a renter, you're playing a dangerous game, and the rules are stacked against you. Unlike many other states, Texas has some of the weakest tenant protection laws in the country. Landlords can raise rent with little notice, evict tenants without cause in many cases, and provide only 3 days' notice before filing for eviction. For families already living on the edge, these laws can turn a small financial hiccup into a life-altering crisis in a matter of days. And the worst part? Many tenants don't even know their rights because the laws are complicated, poorly explained, and rarely enforced in favor of the renter. Legal aid services are overwhelmed, and fighting an eviction in court often requires time and money people simply don't have. This makes low-income renters easy targets for exploitation. In some cases, tenants are forced out simply so landlords can flip a property or raise the rent for the next occupant. There's no cap on how much rent can be increased, and no requirement for landlords to justify why someone is being removed. Now imagine this. You've lived in the same apartment for 5 years, paid your rent on time, built a life, and suddenly, you're given a week to leave because the building's being sold or renovated. You have no savings, no backup plan, and nowhere to go. That's not just stressful, that's terrifying. And it's happening every single day across Texas. With little regulation and almost no safety net, thousands of people are being legally pushed out of their homes, and many end up with evictions on their record, making it even harder to find housing again. Until Texas strengthens its tenant laws, housing stability will remain a luxury, not a right, and homelessness will continue to rise. Number 5. Limited access to mental health and addiction services. One of the most overlooked causes of homelessness in Texas is the severe lack of access to mental health and addiction treatment services. While headlines often blame the homeless crisis on mental illness or drug use, what they don't tell you is that Texas ranks among the worst states for mental health care access. According to Mental Health America, Texas consistently falls in the bottom 5 for both availability of services and funding per capita. That means thousands of Texans struggling with depression, trauma, schizophrenia, PTSD, or addiction simply have nowhere to turn until it's too late. When support systems fail, the streets often become the last resort. Emergency rooms, jails, and homeless shelters have become the de facto treatment centers for people battling untreated mental illness. But these institutions aren't designed for long-term recovery. They're overcrowded, underfunded, and focused on short-term fixes. And once someone ends up homeless due to a mental health crisis, the odds of getting back on their feet without help are incredibly slim. The stress and trauma of living on the street only make existing conditions worse, creating a vicious cycle that becomes harder to break the longer it continues. What makes this even more tragic is that many of these cases are preventable. Early intervention, affordable therapy, community outreach, and access to medication could change lives, literally. But with long waitlists, high costs, and a shortage of qualified professionals, those resources remain out of reach for most vulnerable Texans. Homelessness isn't just about losing a home. It's often the result of losing your health, your support system, and your sense of hope. Until Texas invests in comprehensive, community-based mental health and addiction services, this silent crisis will continue to grow, pushing more people onto the streets not because they're broken, but because the system is. We put countless hours into researching and creating videos like this to spark real conversation. So if this moved you or opened your eyes, leave us a comment and let your voice be part of the change. And hey, subscribing is just one click, but it means the world to us. 6. Natural disasters and climate displacement are forcing families out. Texas has always been known for its unpredictable weather, but in recent years, those storms have grown more frequent, intense, and devastating. From Hurricane Harvey flooding tens of thousands of homes to the deadly 2021 winter freeze that left millions without power or heat, Texans are facing disasters that destroy not only property, but entire livelihoods. And here's the harsh truth. When disaster strikes, the poorest are hit the hardest. Many don't have insurance, savings, or anywhere else to go. A flooded apartment, a collapsed roof, or weeks without income can mean instant homelessness. Climate change isn't some far-off threat. It's already displacing families across Texas. In places like Houston, Corpus Christi, and even inland towns, flash floods, wildfires, and extreme heat waves are becoming more common. Mobile home parks are especially vulnerable, often located in flood-prone areas or without the infrastructure to withstand storms. When these homes are destroyed, families are often left with no financial safety net, no renter's insurance, and no assistance fast enough to prevent them from falling into homelessness. FEMA help can take months, but rent is due in days. Even worse, many areas hit hardest by disasters are the same communities already struggling with poverty. These are neighborhoods with fewer resources, older infrastructure, and less political influence to demand faster recovery. For them, a natural disaster isn't a temporary setback. It's a turning point, a one-time event that begins a slow spiral into housing instability. And with extreme weather predicted to worsen in the coming years, climate displacement could become one of the leading drivers of homelessness in Texas. It's a storm that's not just coming, it's already here, and unless major steps are taken to support vulnerable communities, we'll see more families lose everything overnight with no road back. Number 7. Gentrification is displacing long-time communities. Walk through once affordable neighborhoods in Austin, Houston, or San Antonio, and you'll notice a dramatic shift. Family-owned stores replaced by high-end cafes, modest homes overshadowed by sleek condos, and property taxes soaring beyond what long-time residents can afford. This is gentrification, and while it may bring shiny new developments and trendy businesses, it's also quietly pushing out the very people who built these communities in the first place. For many low-income and minority families, this isn't progress. It's an eviction notice wrapped in luxury branding. Here's how it works. Developers move in, buy up older properties, and transform them into upscale apartments or commercial spaces. As property values rise, so do taxes and rents. Suddenly, a family that's lived in a neighborhood for generations finds themselves priced out, not because they did anything wrong, but because the place they call home is now considered prime real estate. They're forced to relocate, often to areas farther from work, schools, and transportation, or worse, into homelessness if they can't find affordable options fast enough. What makes gentrification so painful is that it often targets communities that have already been historically underserved, Black, Latino, and immigrant neighborhoods that were denied investment for decades. Now that these areas are desirable, they're being transformed for outsiders, while the original residents are left behind. And there are few, if any, protections in place to stop it. Without rent control, relocation assistance, or policies to preserve affordable housing, entire communities are being erased in the name of development. The buildings may look better, but the people who gave them life are being pushed to the margins, or worse, to the streets. Gentrification isn't just changing neighborhoods, it's fueling homelessness one block at a time. Number 8. Cities are spending more to punish the homeless than to help them. Across Texas, city governments are pouring millions of dollars into law enforcement strategies that target homelessness, not solve it. Instead of investing in shelters, support services, or affordable housing, cities are ramping up police patrols, installing hostile architecture like spiked benches or slanted sidewalks, and increasing fines for things like camping, panhandling, or even resting in public spaces. On paper, these actions are meant to clean up the streets, but in reality, they're just hiding the problem and hurting the people who need help the most. What's even more shocking is that this approach is not only ineffective, it's more expensive. Studies from cities like Austin and Dallas have shown that the cost of policing, jailing, and cycling people through emergency services often exceeds what it would take to provide permanent housing or mental health care. For example, one chronically homeless person can cost taxpayers over $30,000 per year in emergency services and law enforcement responses. Yet cities continue to choose punishment over prevention, spending taxpayer dollars to chase symptoms instead of fixing causes. And what does this accomplish? Nothing but long-term damage. A person saddled with arrest records and fines for simply trying to survive on the street is now even less likely to find a job or housing. They're stuck in a loop, criminalized for being poor, then blamed for not escaping poverty. Until cities shift their focus from policing to prevention, the cycle will continue. Homelessness isn't a public nuisance. It's a public health emergency, and treating it with handcuffs instead of housing is like trying to fix a flood with duct tape. It looks like action, but it only delays the disaster. Number 9. Lack of public transportation transportation is cutting people off from opportunity. In a state as massive as Texas, owning a car isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. But what happens when you lose your vehicle or can't afford one to begin with? For many low-income Texans, the answer is devastating. You lose access to work, healthcare, education, and eventually, your home. That's because in most Texas cities, public transportation is either severely limited or almost non-existent, especially in suburban and rural areas where affordable housing is more likely to be found. Imagine you finally find a cheaper apartment, only it's 25 miles from your job, and there's no bus route to get there. Or you miss one shift because the only bus was late and you get fired. Or you can't make it to a medical appointment or job interview because you simply have no reliable way to get across town. Transportation isn't just about movement, it's about survival. Without it, people are cut off from the very things that could help them stay afloat. And once they fall behind, catching up becomes nearly impossible. What's even more troubling is that Texas continues to build around cars, not people. Major highway expansions are funded and prioritized, while public transit budgets are slashed or ignored. This leaves the most vulnerable, seniors, disabled individuals, single parents, stranded. They're forced to rely on expensive rideshares, long walks in unsafe conditions, or simply go without. And when a person can't reach a job, can't keep appointments, or can't access support services, housing becomes unsustainable. The lack of a strong, reliable transportation system in Texas doesn't just inconvenience people, it actively contributes to homelessness by cutting off access to stability, opportunity, and upward mobility. Until transportation is treated as a public right, the cycle of poverty and homelessness will keep spinning. Number 10. Population growth without infrastructure is breaking the system. Texas is growing fast, really fast. In fact, it's one of the fastest growing states in the U.S., with over 1,000 new residents moving in every single day. People are flocking here for jobs, lower taxes, and a shot at the Texas dream. But while the population booms, the infrastructure that supports it, housing, transportation, healthcare, and social services, hasn't kept up. It's like trying to pour a gallon of water into a pint-sized glass. Something's going to overflow, and in Texas, that overflow looks a lot like rising homelessness. As demand for housing skyrockets, developers have focused on building for profit, luxury condos, upscale neighborhoods, and high-rent apartments, while affordable housing projects remain underfunded and underbuilt. Schools and hospitals are overwhelmed, transit systems are stretched thin, and essential support services are lagging far behind population growth. There simply aren't enough resources to support the sheer number of people arriving. And when cities grow too fast without planning for equity, the cracks in the system widen, pushing those already at the margins straight into crisis. This isn't just a housing issue, it's a systemic failure. When millions pour into the state, but wages stay low, rents spike, and public services stagnate, it creates a perfect storm. Those who can't keep up, low-income workers, seniors, disabled individuals, and single parents, are the first to fall through. Without affordable options, many are forced into unsafe, unstable housing, or none at all. Growth may sound like success, but if it leaves the most vulnerable behind, it's just another path to disaster. Until Texas starts planning not just for more people, but for all people, the cycle of homelessness will only deepen, and the dream that brought so many here will turn into a nightmare for thousands. The homelessness crisis unfolding in Texas isn't just about people sleeping on sidewalks. It's about the collapse of systems that are supposed to protect us all. From unaffordable housing and stagnant wages to broken infrastructure and unchecked gentrification, every factor we've explored in this video paints a clear picture. This isn't a personal failure, it's a policy failure. And if we keep ignoring it, more and more everyday Texans will find themselves just one accident, one rent hike, or one storm away from the streets. We've uncovered 10 powerful reasons why homelessness is rising, not just among the unemployed, but among working families, veterans, seniors, and children. These aren't people who gave up. These are people who've been priced out, pushed out, and shut out by a system that's growing faster than it can sustain. It's happening quietly, rapidly, and often invisibly, until it's too late. But here's the truth, it doesn't have to be this way. Change is possible if we stop blaming the victims and start fixing the systems. That means advocating for stronger tenant rights, investing in affordable housing, expanding public transportation, and providing real mental health and addiction support. Most importantly, it means seeing homelessness not as someone else's problem, but as a challenge that affects us all. If this video opened your eyes or gave you a new perspective, don't just scroll past. Like this video to support awareness. Subscribe to the channel for more in-depth content on urgent issues. Comment below, what surprised you most? Have you seen signs of this crisis in your city? Together, we can shift the conversation and maybe, just maybe, the outcome.